Let us now pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens in this our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Oath of allegiance of a new member. Announcements by the presiding officer. Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from Parliament. Petitions, papers. Presentation of reports from the Dispute Resolution Commission Select Committees. Chief Secretary's question, questions to secretaries, questions for oral answer. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statement by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations, introduction of bills, motions relating to the business or sittings of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business, motion.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish to inform you that Assembly Member Ian Pollard will also be absent for this sitting as he was in last sitting.
Leader of Assembly Business, it was stated in the last sitting that Assembly Member Pollard would be absent because of his medical condition. Additionally, there has been a request by the Chief Secretary on behalf of Assembly Member Pantin, who has a medical condition and would not be able to stand for long periods. The standing orders are silent on such an occurrence, but I will use my discretion to allow her to sit for part of her presentations as well.
Thank you.
Leader. Honorable members, the question proposed is, be it resolved that the House approves the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure representing all functions of the Tobago House of Assembly for the financial year October 1st, 2026 to September 30th, 2027, copies of which were laid at an earlier stage of the proceedings. Leader of Assembly Business.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that Standing Order 91 be used to suspend Standing Order 53 to allow our first respondent, Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, to speak and complete his presentation in its entirety.
Honorable members, the question put is that Standing Order 91 be used to suspend Standing Order 53 to allow for the Chief Secretary to complete his presentation. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, say no. The ayes have it. Chief Secretary, you may now join the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Officer. Before I get into my presentation, Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish to, on behalf of the people of Tobago and the Tobago House of Assembly, I wish to stand in solidarity at this time with the citizens of Venezuela who yesterday evening encountered a catastrophic earthquake in Caracas. Well, two within quick succession, and that has led to the loss of significant life, injuries, and destruction of public and private property. And I know in the coming days, the recovery will be difficult for that nation. But given that they are one of our closest neighbors geographically and the closest allies in terms of trade, and we do have within our borders significant numbers of residents who are citizens of that country as migrants living here, I think it is prudent that before I get into the substance of my presentation, that we do express condolences for those who have passed and certainly express support to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Mr. Presiding Officer, today I rise in support of the budget presented by the Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy, Councillor Petalon Roberts, under the theme, Results-Based Governance, a Pathway to Prosperity. Those 4 words, Mr. Presiding Officer, are more than a slogan. They are a philosophy of government. They are a promise to the people of Tobago. They are a declaration that this administration believes governments must not merely make announcements, they must produce outcomes. And we have been producing outcomes. Governments must not simply spend money, they must create value. Governments must not merely manage problems, they must deliver solutions. Results-based governance means that every policy must have a purpose, every project must have a measurable impact, every dollar spent must produce value, and every action of government must move our people closer to prosperity. At its heart, prosperity is not simply about economic growth. Prosperity is about opportunity. It's about creating a Tobago where young people can find meaningful employment, where entrepreneurs can thrive, where communities can flourish, where public services improve, and where every citizen can share in the benefits of development. And that is precisely what this budget seeks to advance. Before I proceed further, I wish to express profound gratitude to the people of Tobago, because earlier this year, the people of Tobago renewed the mandate of this administration. They entrusted us once again with the responsibility of leading this island at a defining moment in history. The mandate was not merely a vote of confidence in individuals, it was an endorsement of a vision, of the blueprint. It was an acknowledgement of the transformation that has begun across Tobago. It was a recognition of the progress made, the reforms undertaken, the difficult decisions embraced, and the possibilities that now lie before us. For that trust, we are deeply grateful. We are even more grateful this morning, Mr. Presiding Officer, that we don't have to suffer through an insufferable presentation from a careless minority. Nonetheless, I wish to be clear that gratitude is not enough. The people have not given us a mandate to become comfortable. And I want to warn my colleagues, we have not been given a mandate to become comfortable. They have given us a mandate to work. They have given us a mandate to deliver. They have given us a mandate to continue transforming Tobago through disciplined leadership, sound governance, and measurable results. Mr. Presiding Officer, I also wish to place on record my sincere appreciation to the Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy, Councillor Petalon Roberts. The steady stewardship of an economy is among the most demanding responsibilities in government. It requires discipline when others demand expediency, and yes, that others might include the Chief Secretary too. It requires prudence when others seek popularity. It requires vision, technical competence, and an unwavering commitment to fiscal responsibility. And throughout her tenure, Secretary Roberts has demonstrated those qualities. She has provided steady stewardship of Tobago finances, exercised prudent management of the public purse, and helped guide our economy through periods of uncertainty while ensuring that we remain focused on growth, resilience, and sustainability. I also wish to commend Assistant Secretary Kern Alexis for his steadfast support in the division, his diligence, his analytical insight, and his unwavering commitment to the execution of the division's mandate. His work behind the scenes has strengthened the division's capacity to deliver, and his contribution to this budget deserves recognition. Mr. Presiding Officer, budgets are often viewed as a collection of numbers, tables, estimates. But budgets are far more than accounting documents. They are statements of priorities. They actually reveal the government's values. They reveal where society intends to go. They reveal what a people are prepared to invest in for the benefit of future generations. Every allocation tells a story. Every program reflects a choice. Every investment signals a belief that tomorrow can indeed be better than today. And I'm happy that our today is better than yesterday, and certainly better than 4 years and 5 years ago. This budget tells the story of a Tobago that refuses to settle for mediocrity. It tells the story of an island determined to diversify its economy, strengthen its institutions, modernize its infrastructure, invest in its people, and unlock its full potential. It is a budget grounded in accountability. It is a budget focused on delivery. It's a budget built around outcomes. It's a budget that seeks not to simply govern Tobago, but to transform Tobago. And so, Mr. Presiding Officer, ordinarily, the opening contribution to a debate is framed against the backdrop of a response from the minority leader, who seeks to contextualize the budget through the lens of the opposition. The people of Tobago, however, have charted a different course. They have entrusted every seat in this honorable assembly to this administration. And as a consequence, there is no minority leader to offer the customary response. That responsibility, therefore, falls to me. Accordingly, I intend to contextualize the budget presented by the Secretary of Finance, and I propose to do so in 4 parts. First, I will present a pictorial overview of what this administration has accomplished during the past 4 and indeed almost 5 months. In fact, today is 4 months and 1 day shy of 5 months since the swearing in of secretaries and the establishment of our divisions. Before we debate where we are going, it is only fitting we account for where we have already been and what we have already delivered. Second, I will offer brief observations on 5 of the 10 strategic priority areas outlined by the Secretary of Finance in her budget presentation on Monday. Third, I will then examine in greater detail the remaining 5 priority areas, highlighting the policies, programs, and investments that will define Tobago's continued transformation. And finally, I will conclude by setting out the governing ethos of this administration for the next 4 years, our philosophy of leadership, our understanding of public service, and the principle that will continue to guide every decision we make on behalf of the people of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, this budget is not simply about appropriations. As I said, it's about accountability. It's about measurable outcomes. It's about a government that understands that its success is measured not by promises made, but by promises kept. And with that, permit me to begin where every result-based government should begin, with evidence of results already being achieved. And I want to look at 25 projects that are actively on the ground at this moment, all happening simultaneously. And as I go through them, Mr. Presiding Officer, I don't want it to be lost on Tobagonians that not so long ago, it was incredibly difficult to have 25 development projects from small to large happening at the same time. And this is only 25 that I've picked out. Secretaries, as they speak, will speak to the others that are happening in their spaces. But to have 25 projects, especially built projects, happening at the same time, we must be grateful that there is, at the central government, a change from the status quo. Not so long ago, the status quo that was there sought to punish us for not aligning with their politics. What we have now is a status quo that is much more respectful to the politics of Tobago. And because Tobagonians took the decision to change our representatives at the national parliament, the outcomes that we are seeing here on the ground in Tobago are markedly different. And so I must express gratitude to the members of parliament for Tobago West and East, MP Sampson and MP Thomas, because to have 25 projects, most of which are multi-million-dollar projects, happening at the same time, when our development spend it is never ever at the $1 billion point that we have been requesting, and barely will cross 300 million on a given year, says something. I must also take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for instructing and insisting that members of her cabinet respect the Tobago House of Assembly and that Tobago be given a fair share of the national budget. So with that, let's go through 25 projects that are happening right now as we speak. Some close to completion, some complete. The first is the Shallerville Community Center, Pavilion and Playing Field. This project is 65% complete. And before those who were here try to take credit for this project, I was just an ordinary area representative when they came to the community and they broke down the community center. It took about another year to come up with a plan. When they came to the village council with the plan, I was in that village council meeting. And we said no to the original plan because the original plan excluded the pavilion. Then they proposed to put the pavilion where the batting nets are located at a corner of the playing field. We also said no to that. And eventually we landed and agreed on a design where the pavilion is situated at the top of the building. Let me hasten to say that we are not just doing the community center and the pavilion. The community center is being done. The pavilion is being done. The batting nets are being repaired. The basketball court is being completed. Drainage around the field, the earthen drain will be replaced with concrete drain. And the surface of the playing field is also being done. As a matter of fact, the instruction is that from July 21st, the field is out of bounds to any vehicular traffic. So park there for the last time for Shallerville Heritage on July 20th. But the day after that, you will not be allowed to park there because works will begin on the playing field. This project is expected to be completed, at least the community center and pavilion is expected to be completed by August 19th, thereabouts. And then we will proceed to get the other elements in the facility completed, preparing for a grand opening in very early September. Then we also have happening right now and nearing completion the Louisdor Agro-Processing Facility. The Louisdor Agro-Processing Facility is 78% completed. The exterior painting happened about a week or two ago. This is a facility that was abandoned by the last regime. This is where we used to go and purchase our smoked fish, our cuts of beef. That's me. For people like my neighbor there in Bell Garden, her cuts of pork. We used to have cassava mash. And then when they formed TATCO, they shut this facility down and abandoned it and left it to rot. What we are doing is that we are setting up an agro-processing facility that all agro-processors on the island, small to medium especially, can go into this facility. They will see in this facility a commercial grade equipment that they can use. All they will need to do is to schedule their use of the facility. There will be timetabled. You go in, you use the commercial blenders, the commercial ovens, etc., dryers, etc. You produce your goods, you have it packaged, you clean up, and you leave. And next agro-processor gets to use it. The benefit of this model is that we understand that in Tobago, every agro-processor can't afford to build their own factory space. And producing the goods from their homes reduces one's ability to actually export the items. And so this facility, which will meet all the necessary ISO standards and health standards, public health standards, will allow them to produce in this facility and have products that are actually exportable. Mr. President said this is an example of what happens when PNM is not in office and people who love Tobago in office. We have also happening at the same time the Palatuvere Fishing Depot. This is 45% complete, and here we wish we were further along with this project, but we very much expect that this project be delivered in the last quarter of this year. This project will provide extensive facility for the fishers in the area. They will have more than sufficient lockers. This will produce a design that is different from all other fishing depots because the top floor of this building, Mr. Presiding Officer, will facilitate the housing of restaurants and bars so you can enjoy that beautiful view from Palatuvere, from being right on the harbor. You can see the stingrays in the water from right there. So it's a mixture of tourism, fishing. We want the restaurants there to take the fresh fish and to put them on the grill, put them on the stove, and you have a really wonderful, eating experience there in North Tobago. This is about appreciating that we're not building facilities because we feel like. We consulted with the people in this area. They said what they wanted out of a facility. That then informed the design, and so we are building. It wasn't a case of us building and say, hey, look, take it or leave it. That is what good governance looks like. That is what transparent governance looks like. And that's what results-based governance looks like, Mr. Presiding Officer. And let me hasten to advise the people of Palatuvere that we are working on the new jetty there at Palatuvere. Next, we also have Roxborough Secondary School auditorium happening as we speak. And I'm happy to show these images. I'm glad, Mr. President Officer, you gave leave to use the images. In Tobago East and in Tobago, there is no real dedicated indoor sporting facility. But guess what? Tobago East will get one before Tobago West. And that's what has happened when countrymen come tongue and lead tongue. That country is not left behind. So this is a secondary school that will have state-of-the-art wooden facility to allow for the playing of netball, basketball, and other indoor sports. And while that is happening, the division of, youth empowerment and sport, they are now charged to help us fix the court on the exterior, which is the largest outdoor court in East Tobago and the only public tennis courts in all of East Tobago, located there at Roxborough Secondary. And this is completed. This is completed at this moment, ready to hand over at the Roxborough Secondary School. And this is a school that has been excelling at athletics. And so we are investing as a government in Roxborough Secondary so that they become even more premier school when it comes to track and field, athletics and sports in general. Then we move now to Corlan ECCE. We recognize, Mr. Presiding Officer, that in the catchment area that includes Plymouth all the way back to Blackrock, we need space for early child care and education. And the Corlan ECCE is moving at a very quick pace. Maybe the technicians are stuck, but it's moving at a very quick pace. The Corlan ECCE we expect to be ready, to be completed. It's 60% completed at this point, and we are expecting completion by the middle of August, and we are expecting to have the school open in time for September. So early childhood care and education is under construction as we speak, and we are already looking at a second location. We know we need to have one either between Friendship and Chauvin. We'll look at what the planning permits in those areas, but we are ready to go with the second one. We are also looking at a primary school for Scarborough in this catchment area, because all our primary schools in Scarborough are filled to capacity, and we're making the necessary provisions. We are currently staying in Corlan. We are currently going through phase 2 of the Blackrock Corlan Beach Sport Arena. So we completed it in 40 days, thereabouts, 40 days and 40 nights for the Commonwealth Games. What we are doing are some retaining systems to retain the embankment and to expand the areas that the public can view the beach sports from. That's in the second phase. The third phase would be to install additional public washrooms and change rooms for the athletes. Mr. President Officer, it breaks my heart to say that it's from this site that Batman and Robin stole the backhoe and truck and attempted to steal the ATM out at Plymouth. But this is active construction. It's 75% completed at this point. And then we go across to infrastructure. And I want to park parenthetically to make this salient point. We had 2 elections back-to-back in Tobago. And what responsible governance is? We didn't spend for an election. Sure. We didn't go crazy spending out the little kakada we have, hoping to win an election. We decided that responsible governance was more attractive to Tobagonians than patronizing Tobagonians. So we could have easily done like our predecessors. When we came into office, they spent out over $163 million from a bond financing, started paving roads during an emergency, and Tobago roads still in a bad state. They paved their own bank accounts. They didn't pave anybody real road. And I'm happy to announce, Mr. President Officer, that on that matter, that the Tobago House Assembly has in fact served court papers to those who were involved in that matter, and that's an active court case. So the court will deal with that. So we move from auditing all the way to the courthouse, because in this government, we don't do audit to make political grant charging. In fact, when you're in charge, you don't grant charge. You just take charge. And so that matter is before the court as we speak. And so we responsibly restricted our expenditure as we approach the THA election. We said, now is not the time to go behaving like spendthrifts. And now that we are out of the election, we are seeing a road paving mania happening across the island. Mm-hmm. We have paved to date 45.7 kilometers of road. Wow. I want you to understand what that means. 45.7 kilometers is equivalent to driving from Scarborough to Charlottesville. That's how much road we have paved in just 5 months. In fact, 1 day short of 5 months. We paved Collar Hall to 4th Street, Boko Park, Mount Pleasant Roads, Allfields Branch Road, and Bridgewood Triangle. Sanctuary in Blackrock Main Road, Golden Grove Road, Market Square Car Park, Gardenside Street in Scarborough, Robinson Street, that's Young Street to Bacolet, Bacolet Crescent Road, Bacolet Street, Robinson Street, Young Street, Rockley Vale to Northside to Burnett and Castry Street, Northside Road, that's Mount Grace to Rockley Vale, Providence Road to Idlewild to Plymouth Road, Old Road to Montpelier, Smithfield Road, Allfields, Crown Trace, Scipio Trace, Sherburne Road to Buku Road, and that's Plymouth to Buku Integrated Facility, Milford Road, Crown Point, and that's by Uptop Bar, the road by Uptop Bar, Store Bay Branch Road, Store Bay Local Road, Pigeon Point, Gaskin Bay Road, Union Road, Plymouth Road, Lovers Lane, Richmond Bay Road, and what's not included here is that the Castara fixing up Castara, and then Pembroke fixing up Pembroke. So this 45.7 kilometers by now is probably somewhere closer to 50 kilometers. And while all of that is happening, Mr. Presiding Officer, at Public Health, we have a new task force building going on at Signal Hill, which is 80% complete. For those who don't know, those in Public Health, those who come and treat with the sewers, those who are the perifocals, those who come and look at insect management and all of that, they work out of Signal Hill where the original division used to be. And their conditions were deplorable. The conditions were less than ideal. Because we are a results-based government, because we are a government that's about prosperity for all, we will not allow our workers to continue to work in substandard conditions while we sit high and lofty. So we're fixing where they work. This building at Signal is 80% complete. And when it's completed, I'm hoping that the division will consider building out and moving their division back to Signal Hill over time, because the land asset is there, and that might be a good way of decentralizing things from inside Scarborough and managing traffic in Scarborough. While that is happening, Mr. Presiding Officer, the palliative Hard Court is currently being done. That's at 78% completion, just fencing and the dressing for the court. While that is happening, we have a large build-out happening at Riseland. And you know, the one thing this is 50% completion. This just starts. And the one thing I forgot to work with is a list of all the local contractors that are working here. And I will get the list and ask the Secretary for Settlements to read that list. Because yes, there is a large Trinidad contractor here who is building using his funds. But you know who's doing all that work? Small Tobago contractors, not even medium, micro Tobago contractors are doing this work. In fact, the contractor is just putting down the foundation, putting down the steel frame structure, and our local contractors are doing the block work, doing the masonry work. They have tiling, they have electrical work, plumbing work, carpentry work. This is an example of what must happen in our space. We understand that for some projects, based on cost, we have to use alternative funding methods to fund them. Let's be real. The THA will not be able to do every project as design build. Where we pay for every project up front and be able to pay for all 100%. And so we have to get creative in order to provide the deliverables to the people of Tobago. So Riseland, the contractor, is expected to provide 50 units completed by December. But at this rate, will be closer to 80 units completed by the end of the month of December. We also have starting Adventure Housing, the earthworks, just where we at with Adventure. And you should start seeing the build works at Adventure in Plymouth happening soon. I want to give a commitment to the people of Plymouth, who every time I walk Plymouth, they complain that the THA built this annex to their community, which was supposed to expand their community, and everybody else living there except their own people from Plymouth. And the people of Plymouth must have an opportunity to live in their expanded community as well. It's about protecting indigenous cultures and protecting indigenous communities. So the earthwork is more or less completed, and we are ready to begin the second phase of Adventure, which will expand the housing in Adventure. And not too far from that, the Secretary of Finance will be blessing the community with access to a small piece of land for the patent for the people of Plymouth Steel Sensation. Then we have the development of the Emergency Operations Center at Fairfield Complex. OCS has been quietly redoing Fairfield Complex. That Fairfield Complex will become the headquarters for the Division of Security in Tobago, Internal Security in Tobago, Public Security and Safety and Security, sorry. And so that build work is happening as we speak. We are at the basement level because we have to work while the workers are still in the building. We can't have our emergency operations in a building that is not fit for purpose and that is itself at risk during inclement weather. So we are at the basement level now, fixing from the basement level going up. The mandate is to relocate the social groups that are there, not kick them out, but relocate them. We're talking about blind welfare. TFA has already been relocated to the stadium. So the idea is to relocate them into more appropriate spaces, which will be managed by the Division of Community Development and or Youth Empowerment and Sport. So yes, you take care of TYC. Comdev will take care of the others. And this entire facility will now take care of our emergency operations and our public safety and security operations headquartered there in Backlet. This is happening as we speak. While that is happening, Tractor Pool is undergoing upgrade works. Tractor Pool never looked so pretty. So Tractor Pool is undergoing upgrade works as we speak, and that's 85% complete. That will ensure that we provide much more efficient service to our farmers. Our farmers have constantly complained that they have receipts for donkey years and they can't get their lands plowed, etc. We are ensuring that we can have efficiency by having fit-for-purpose spaces for our workers. So this is Tractor Pool, 85% completed. Then I lamented a year or so ago that we have a reforestation program going on around Tobago, and the people who are the truest guardians of the main ridge rainforest and our most prized forest possession, that they were never in the program. We had a reforestation program happening in Speyside, in Argyle, in Belgarden, but none on the north side. But the people closest to the rainforest are those in Bloody Bay, Palatavere, and Lansfomé. That has been fixed within our first 5 months in returning to office. That the reforestation program was rolled out in the north side, and we have a cadre of young people employed in the area to manage the hiking trails, to ensure that they remain clean, tidy, that garbage is removed, that there are park benches, and all that's necessary. So this was rolled out about 2 weeks ago up at the Main Ridge Rainforest Visitor Center. We also have under construction right now the food hub in Mason Hall. Is 55% complete. So this food hub will create an economic hub away from the main road in Mason Hall. It will begin to create a space where we can transition our public transportation service. Because the intention of the government is that public transportation should have hubs at Mason Hall and Roxborough, where we can transition to smaller buses to go all the way to Lansomé, and smaller buses to go all the way to Charlottesville. And if we have a hub at Roxborough, we will also be able to now have a service that goes through the rainforest from Roxborough across the Bloody Bay and those villages. This food hub will be a game changer in terms of micro enterprises in what is Tobago's largest, one of our largest villages by virtue of population size. This is 55% completed. Then we introduced a few weeks ago VR technology to our tourism product here in Tobago, because tourism is changing. Let's be real, tourism is more than sun, sea, and sun. And we are using the technology to our advantage, that even if you are differently abled, and that's a priority area in this budget, if you are differently abled and you can't hike through Gilpin Trace, you can't make it across to Little Tobago, you can't walk from Fort Campbellton down to Pirates Bay, you can't make it across Turtle Beach, then you could still see almost in real terms, using virtual reality, our tourism assets. And I want to commend TTAL and the Division of Tourism for using the technology in an innovative way and ensuring that we upgrade our tourism product. Number 17, deserving of honorable mention, is the fact that this year we celebrated 250 years of the Main Ridge Rainforest, and we instituted the award ceremony for our environmental warriors. We are going to be seeing some heavy build development over the next 4 years. And I expect to cross swords with our environmentalists over the next 4 years. But you know what? That is okay. This is a democracy. Their job is to keep us in check while we seek to build out the development of the island. And we want our environmentalists to know that we have not changed our minds with regards to protecting Tobago's best asset, which is our green and blue assets that God has given to us. And so I commend the newly minted secretary and the division for what they have embarked on in celebrating the 250 years, but the other environmental pledges and projects underway. At this time, Mr. Presiding Officer, we have 4 homes under construction as part of the affordable housing program. The pilot project was done in Bonaccord in Milford Court, where we gave that unit to a lady that is blind, legally blind. And now we have 4 underway, and the division is preparing to go out for a further 10 to be constructed. And the division will be doing the further 10 as 10 individual units, so that provides 10 different opportunities for small contractors to get involved in building these affordable homes. We understand, Mr. Presiding Officer, that there will be some among us who will never be able to afford a house. And instead of them living on the streets, we have to take care of them. That's what prosperity for all looks like. That even those who can't take care of themselves because of nature, because of accidents, or for whatever reason, we must take care of them. The hallmark of a caring government is taking care of those who are vulnerable. And then while that is happening, we have some extensive work happening at Lucivale Branch Road. And let me say, I grew up in the vicinity of this area here, and I want to highlight it. Everybody knows one of the best beaches in this area is a beach we call Indian Bay, which is short for West Indian Bay. To access that beach, you will have to drive a long alternative route to get there. But we had people falling down, skating down, because they could not have access to this hill. It's a tricky piece of engineering. I must admit, the Division of Infrastructure got the engineering wrong several times. But we seem to be closing in on this project at this time. And this is 68% complete. And let me say, Secretary of Infrastructure, I have harvest on the 26th of July, and I don't want money in my place. So I hope this could be completed in time for that.
We have harvest.
Well, I hear we have harvest. So I'll be passing around the collection plate for some assistance from my colleagues.
It's a part of the heritage calendar, eh?
It's part of the heritage calendar now, so I'll pass on the collection plate so they can assist me with the food and the drinks. Then we also have work happening at Plant Troop Extension, and this is where we have squatters, and I want to pause here to say that sometimes we have informal communities popping up. People just go someplace and start to live, they start to squat, and we're not encouraging squatters. As if we just build a new road going through Friendship, and all kind of people start to pop up there. Let me advise you, if you weren't there all the time, you shall be removed. So we're not encouraging the reckless squatting. And those that are there, we will were there before the road will make sufficient provisions for them. But sometimes, without our prompting, informal communities come up, and you just have to find a way to take care of them. And it's not just here, but we have the commitment already from self-help to do the bridge for the community up there in Patience Hill, where I think some child fell down some months ago. So that will be done with the assistance of the community and infrastructure. But yes, our mind and our mind's eyes are also set on informal communities. Then we look at Gibson Jetty area. We have begun the process of lighting that area. There is a containerized unit there that will soon house a small security outpost. So we'll have security management of the Buku Reef Marine Park. And it's about ensuring that our visitors, our residents, are safe when they are utilizing our tourism plans. And then we get to Posh. In Posh, we did a draw last year for the pilot of Posh. I'm happy to announce that we have completed the surveys. We have completed the notification of the area, and that we are at the stage where all of those persons who were selected will receive their designated lots so that they can proceed to start to build. The procurement at the Office of the Chief Secretary is preparing to go out to tender so we can provide the necessary access roads and public utilities, but this project is ongoing as we speak. And I will speak some more about Posh and what we'll do with that later on in the presentation. And then we have a big one, gratuities. Again, you've seen gratuities here, and I want to pause so you can look at this chart. And I want to look at 2026 as at May 2026. Because contracted officers, those who, and I'm not just talking gratuities, I'm talking gratuities, overtime, and other such payments. We always have complaints. I ain't gave me gratuity, I ain't gave me gratuity. Yes, there are some limits because there's always a financial limit. But we made this a priority. And as at May 2026, that's just last month, Assembly Legislature paid $26,652 in gratuities. Office of the Chief Secretary paid $874,035. The Division of Finance paid $1,220,696. Food Security paid $783,803. Tourism, $603,035. Education, I want my colleagues in the teaching fraternity. Yes, you are still my colleagues. I want you to pay attention. $10,392,995 paid in gratuities to contracted teachers in Tobago. Community development, a whopping $4,469,674. The Division of Infrastructure, $877,024. The Division of Health, and that will include TRH, that does not include TRH here. The Division of Health, The Division of Health, $1,394,995. And the Division of Settlements, well, youth, you now start. So your workers will get 3 years from now. But the Division of Settlements, $376,098. For a grand total of $24,019,007 as at May 2026 for the internal divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly. And we ain't done that yet. The TRHA, you know how much the TRHA has paid for the same period? $20 million in gratuities paid by TRHA for the same million. So the Tobago House of Assembly has spent $44,019,007 on gratuities as of May 2026. So if you're home and you're just closing your fridge, or the radio was on a different channel, or the phone ring, or your commercial neighbor just call out your name to see if you're listening to the budget. Listen to this. As at May 2026, this Tobago House of Assembly has paid out $44,019,007 in gratuities to Tobagonians. Prosperity is about putting money in the pockets of average and ordinary Tobagonians. And then we look at the Shore Park tennis courts. This has been an eyesore for a long time. And we are at 93% completion. In fact, the whole of this was a matter of not getting US currency because the expert who is to come and expertly do the dressing of the court so that it is fit for international competition requires payments in US dollars. And so the contractor has been trying to get the US dollars to get the experts here to complete this job. This will be completed before we end the July-August vacation. And we will return to the people of Tobago their hard courts. Their hard courts that will allow for a beautiful sporting complex as is being developed in this area. Because there's a whole macro plan for this area that has the Shore Park complex, the Shore Park playing field, the tennis courts, what we will do in between the complex and the playing field, and what we will do with those godforsaken old quarters we have on the other side of the boulevard. But, Mr. President Officer, this is performance. All of this is happening at the same time. We are spending 40+ million on gratuities, spending millions on tennis courts, spending millions on homes so people who can't afford to pay us a red cent, spending millions on a food hub, protecting our green assets, on emergency operations centers. And all of these things are happening simultaneously. We ain't sit down here. And I think one of the problems we have is that we're not boasting properly of the works that we're doing. And so I will want secretaries to go beyond showing videos of themselves walking, show videos of the work. Meanwhile, videos are walking, our videos are working. Because the people of Tobago must have an appreciation for what good leadership and management and stewardship of our finances look like. And this is evidence of what it looks like. We inherited this in a dilapidated condition. And we're fixing all of the courts one time. This is performance, Mr. Presiding Officer. And finally, I'll end with the permanent home of the Blue Food, where we have one phase left to be done. The community of Bloody Bay does not have at this time an official community center, because the community center was built on private lands without any formal agreement. The owner of the estate who said go ahead and build, she passed. And the family have been taking years to figure out what sort of arrangements they want with the THA. In the meanwhile, nothing could happen on the center. The center is just falling apart. But these are vulnerable communities. And we can't do development by focusing only on large communities or affluent communities. Rural communities such as Bloody Bay, with 300 residents thereabout, requires government input. And so the last piece of the puzzle at the Blue Food Ground is the installation of a learning resource center. The entire facility is 41% complete, but the learning resource center will allow for there to be a smart classroom, for there to be open spaces for teaching, for homework center, so that we could shape the minds of the young people in that area. This is an area that not until we got into office, efforts were made to ensure that they have access to internet by fiber optics being run there in concert with the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Now we're doing the Learning Resource Center, which will be at the area where the stage was for last year, Blue Food. And this entire facility will include areas for children. The community will have ATVs there and hiking there, access to public washrooms so you could use the river and all the nature trails there at the same time. And so those are just 25 areas I wanted to highlight in a pictorial review. As I move speedily along, and I'm hoping that I will be done by lunch, so you will get lunch on time. There are 5 areas I just want to touch on quickly, based on the priorities established by the Secretary of Finance. And those 5 areas I will touch on quickly, not in detail, will be sustainable tourism, the creative industries, climate resilience, improvement to public infrastructure, food security and sovereignty. I announced after the last sitting, Mr. Presiding Officer, that we are closing in on an arrangement with Caribbean Airlines for direct Toronto-Tobago flight. And we are at the point where we have the agreement from Caribbean Airlines. We, on our end, have signed that agreement. The Secretary of Finance have already released $2.5 million to TTAL to help with the marketing of that flight. $4 million released to TTAL to prepare for the marketing and MRG commitments where Caribbean Airlines is concerned. I am meeting with the Minister of Transportation on Friday concerning this matter, and sometime thereafter the date of the flight will be announced. The purpose of this is that we need to open up Tobago to the world. And as I made an announcement, all kind of experts start to jump out about tourism. Suddenly, well, if you were such an expert, why wasn't doing it when I was in office? If you had all of these bright ideas, why weren't you doing it? Your best offering was Sanders under a very bad MOU deal. And when we said to you, change the MOU, change the terms of agreement, change the deal, you decide to pull it and blame those who were telling you to do the responsible thing. But there's no one fix to our problem with the tourism industry. We need direct flights. We need to fix our room stock. And let's pause. We need to fix our room stock and have quality rooms. There's no secret there. And I'm glad I did not say it. But the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Tobago, he's the one who said it, who spoke about the absence of standards and the quality of the room. And the question is it the THA that's supposed to go and fix everybody's room? Or is that a private sector thing? And what happened with the millions given from COVID till now, and still being given for room upgrades? How has that benefited this sector in improving the quality of rooms? And so there is a need for new hotel developments on the island. And yes, I hear those in opposition to the Marriott Hotel, but the same environmental attributes that site has exists around the entire island. So it's not that that area has an enclave with some unique species that could only be found there and nowhere else on the island. They exist around the island. And it cannot be a case where we are saying no to every hotel development. My position has been clear, has been consistent. even when Sanders was here. Number one, the THA must take the lead on tourism. Not somebody from outside who going and play golf with a man and deciding he come in and build a hotel in Tobago. That is counterproductive to the autonomy claims and the legal responsibilities of the Tobago House of Assembly. Number two, that any hotel development must meet environmental best practices. Number three, it must recognize the history, the culture of the indigenous communities that these hotels are to be developed in. And the fourth thing that must happen is that it must happen with consultation with the people of Tobago. So we welcome the Marriott Hotel development. They are waiting, they're planning approvals from Town Country Planning, and then we will move there. But we will be using state assets and encouraging the building of hotels in Tobago, more so boutique hotels. Because a carrying capacity study was done about 10 years ago, which says that Tobago's best positioning would be boutique hotels somewhere between 75 and 150 rooms. So we are not going out for necessarily massive hotels, but boutique hotels that respects our environmental footprint that can be built up. But it's not the theatre job to build hotels. We already saddled with the burden of Manta Lodge. That was a poor investment, a poor economic decision to purchase those two hotels. We went out for some tenders recently, and I'm told that we have some desirable bids for Sanctuary, some requesting outright purchase, some requesting PPP arrangements. That's at the evaluation stage, and then we'll be informed by those doing the evaluation, the project managers at EID Cut, what will be their recommended next step where Sanctuary is concerned. The next area where sustainable tourism is that we have to make provision for a marina in Tobago. And Tobago needs a marina. It has to happen. We are outside of the hurricane belt. There is an advantage to our geographical location. We can easily provide fuel. We can provide electricity. We can provide water. Those are three main things that are needed when yachties and cruise ships and super yachts come to your marina. Because they want to come off their generators, they want to fill up their water tanks, they want to fill up their fuel tanks, and they pay premium for these facilities. We have looked at this area around the Friendship, and sometime early in our tenure, in the last dispensation, I think it was either NITCO or NIPDEC, decided they were going to go out for tender for this area. And I had to put them in their place. I had to say, but you're not in charge of Tobago. How are you going out for tender for a marina and you're not in charge of Tobago without consulting the government on the island of Tobago? So I had to put them in their place. I am not just talking autonomy. Once I am here, we are living with an autonomous government, and we will live out every single aspect of Act 40 of 1996, whether the 1% or the 5% or 10% like it or don't like it. But we are preparing, and we are going to go out for tender, public tender, open tender, for those wishing to invest in marina development in Tobago. It will be open to firms from Trinidad and Tobago and internationally. The benefit of this area, Mr. Presiding Officer, as shown on the screen, is that it has close proximity to where NGC is and where we have direct fuel lines coming to Tobago. It's within very close proximity to where we generate electricity on the island. And it's also within close proximity to an area shown to WASA about 2 weeks ago by myself and Secretary Joe Field for desalination plant so that we can produce more water for the people in Southwest Tobago. And then we come to the Buku Reef Marine Park. And I want to speak about this, because I've been having meetings with people from the Buku who operate in the Buku Reef Marine Park. You know, as a parent, sometimes you tell the children, you buff your children and say, no. Me, I want to talk in from me, but then You know, there's a child here, the children is the object of your parenting, the love of your parenting. So you have to concede and meet with them and talk with them. And notwithstanding my earlier pronouncements that me and want no meeting with them, they have been coming to my office. I had some of the proprietors down on No Man's Land, people who sell there, they came to my office. And just this week, I had 3 representatives there. In fact, 3 among the most vociferous ones there at my office. And we had a very cordial meeting. We had a firm conversation, Mr. Presiding Officer. There were some areas we disagree on. They feel as though we should pull back the Marine Park Bill. I told them I do not agree with that position, but I told them what I agree with and I can commit to is that the Secretary of Environment will begin consultations on the actual regulations. I think what people don't understand is that there's a difference between the regulations and the law. The law is what's going to authorize us to really create regulations and have them enforceable. So the law in and of itself is not the regulations. And I don't think they understand that. They think the law itself is the regulations. And so I am asking publicly, instructing publicly that the Secretary for Environment, the Secretary for Legal Affairs, that they sit and go through what those proposed regulations would be. Because this matter is with the CPC, which is the Chief Parliamentary Council, and we know that by statute, the Parliament will go on recess at the end of June. For July and August, this bill would make it to the Parliament before September. And so I am instructing that we create some proposed regulations, go to them, sit with them, and go through the proposed regulations, inclusive of what we propose should be user fees for the area. I even push back against their desire to not have user fees, and I explain that for the park to be managed, it costs millions every year. And we're not managing it for ourselves, manage it for them. I also want to be clear, Mr. Presiding Officer, that our decision to go to court, to have the court invariably regulate the use of the space until laws and regulations are in place, is because even after the death caused by the jet ski, we saw jet skis zooming in and among bathers without care. And no, it's not this government's intention to have a full block on the use of jet skis around the island. I saw, as recent as last week, that the US government issued warnings to visitors in Bahamas, telling their visitors in Bahamas to avoid the use of jet skis because it's high risk. Some jurisdictions like Jamaica, they ban them altogether. What we have always been proposing is a matter of zoning and saying these are the areas you could operate a jet ski in, and these are the areas you should not be in, and we expect that the stakeholders will honor that. I also gave a commitment with the gentlemen there that they are the ones going to take me on No Man's Land, because I insisted with them that we must do some measurable built development in that zone for those who sell in that area. They must have access to water. They must have access to toilet facilities. It must meet environmental best practice. In fact, there are options. You could have toilets that are composting toilets, for example. There are options available for environmentally sensitive areas. As a matter of fact, I don't know if people are aware, you can't even have a beach blue flag, which is considered the highest accolade for a beach that is environmentally sound, unless there are bathroom facilities attached to that beach. So, for example, Englishman's Bay can never be blue flagged unless there are bathroom facilities there. And so the build development there will take into consideration all of the environmental considerations. So I got their commitment that they will take me out there next week. We will walk again. I know consultations we had with the vendors in the area. We will walk there together, and they will propose to me where they think is the best space to do the build out for them. But this government doesn't want to run them from the space, now, Mr. Presiding Officer. I believe Tobagoans must exercise their business with a sense of pride, with a sense of integrity. So for how long are we going to sell under shacks? We can't sell under something that looks nice. You travel all over the Caribbean, they have things that look nice, neat, well painted, tidy. And then we all over the place. We agree that there will be a rebranding of the work that they do down in the area there, so that they're not seen as hustlers and higglers and harassers of the visitors, but that they are seen as worthwhile businessmen who have incredible customer service, who are warm and lovely and can smile and use polite language to residents and visitors. So we'll do the rebranding exercise. Many will not know that we have already offered that as a THA. We will do everything from providing them with their uniforms and so on that they have, giving them ID passes so that they can be readily identified to a visitor by name and by the company that they work with. But I have some good news. In that meeting, you know what they suggested? They suggested that we should return to the days where we have somebody there on a daily basis before the boat go out, checking and ensuring that the boats don't go past their capacity in numbers before they leave.
Very good.
They suggested that.
Very good.
And so I want to commend them for not just thinking selfishly about their trade, but actually thinking about how they preserve their trade and preserve the industry down there. And that's what responsible tourism is about. Then we have the transition to the new airport terminal that we have been working on. The current airport is just blank. It's empty. It's a beautiful shell. It can open this very minute, but there'll be nothing in there to buy. The micro enterprises like those selling Benny and Tambran, they have nowhere to sell because it's a blank space that's there with plugs. So the Tobago House of Assembly, using its authority in the 5th schedule and with express support from the Ministry of Transportation, the Minister of Transportation, and the Honorable Prime Minister, we are doing the build-out inside the terminal to ensure that we have the best first impressions of Tobago. And what we're seeing now, Mr. Presiding Officer, is what we propose as the marketplace. This is where the Benny and Tambran people are going to be. And you see those lovely taro leaves above, what we call dashing leaves? It's to be reflective of our culture and blue food. And you can see the backdrop that there's a lovely tourism office there that will be run by TTAL as well, also being built out, and that has started. We also, you saw earlier on the image of what the check-in area will look like. This will be themed after Tobago's heritage. So it's not just a mundane, ordinary check-in, but it's a check-in area that is reflective of the vibrancy of this island. And you will walk from this check-in area through an area reflective of the main ridge rainforest. Before you get to either your general check-in area or to the marketplace where the actual vendors will be. The THA is also doing all of this. We're investing in our tourism product. This island, we can't tell people come to this space, and when they come, the place look kaba. When they come, the place must look decent and proper, right? And the Tobagonians I know like to dress up. And while we pause on this, because this is what the domestic lounge will look like, where you wait to take your flight to get to Piaco. And this area is themed Buku Reef. So the representative for Buku should be proud that there's a part of this themed after Buku. And then the general area upstairs is themed after the silk cotton tree. And we are providing the spaces for and developing the spaces for the microprocessors and so the micro businesses to operate from. Because the airport policy is really that they just rent you a blank space. And you pay rent for the blank space and you do your own bill out. That's how it is across the entire world. That's why when you travel in an airport, you see no two booths looking alike. because every enterprise is responsible for setting up their own branding. But we know Tobago businesses, they can't afford that. So that's where the THA comes in. That's what prosperity for all means. And this area looking at is the area where our taxi drivers and our car rentals will be. So they have a decent space to ply their trade. So they're just jumping in your face as you come out. You want a taxi? No, decency. Plying your trade with integrity and class and improving our standards in Tobago. And with that, we have to also improve our customer service as well. And already, the Secretary of Finance has already released about $10 million towards this project and ensuring that the build-out is possible in the new airport. And then we speak to creative industries, and I don't know if we understand and appreciate how this is a serious revenue generator for our people. We have some of the best talents in the country. We could dance like nobody else except me. We could sing like nobody else except me. We could cook like nobody else, including me. But I don't know that we are selling those assets. I did a presentation at a climate resilience conference in Port of Spain last month. And there were some representatives there from Jamaica. And in the conversation as we were having dinner, they brought up, Carnival culture in Jamaica and Byron Lee and the Dragonaires. And they were asking me for Oscar B, because he was a lead singer for them. As far away as Jamaica, we have Oscar B here ordinarily singing at our functions and not realizing his mark on the region and the globe. We're doing the butterfly and the shadow, not realizing his mark on the globe. And yes, unfortunately, he's not well. But I'm happy to announce that a proposal came asking for support, medical support for him to the Office of the Chief Secretary, and approval was given to provide the support to Oscar B and his family. I rush on to mention climate resilience, environmental sustainability, and energy transition. By the month of September, we should have the report on energy transition, how we manage energy in the THA. Our light bills are way too high. We need to manage that. We are currently also reviewing a policy on vehicles for the THA, and the mandate will soon be that vehicles of a certain nature must be electric or plug-in hybrid. We are moving away from the use of traditional fossil fuels for vehicles, and we are moving to a policy where the lights, something as basic as the lights, should be turned off, the air conditioning units turned off, when we are not in the offices. We're also looking at how we improve public infrastructure. And I must say, Mr. Presiding Officer, that the Tobago House of Assembly cannot build every piece of public infrastructure that we need. We will never have enough money to do that. And that's why we have to go out to investors. We have to go out and ask the private sector to assist. I sure you saw the lovely design that Secretary James and his team did for in Scarborough. That will be the design for a new transportation hub, offices, retail space, parking. I don't know that has to be built 100% with THA cash. What I really would love to see is if there is some enterprising Tobagonian or national who will build that out and earn their money in the back end. It saves the government the hassle of having to do the maintenance and hiring staff to see about it. But in private hands, it's better managed, and contractually, we could manage what the fees are. And the THA give a commitment to renting office space from them. That kind of model has to be used to build out our public infrastructure. The days when town country planning says to us that no building could go higher than a coconut tree, those days are gone. And as far as I'm concerned, are rubbish. If it is we are protecting our environment, we can't develop like shrubs do, horizontally. Because then we will soon run out of land space. We can't build far and wide, and every enterprise we engage in is a massive complex with several buildings. That won't make sense. We have to start building vertically in an effort to preserve land space. And this is 2026. Parking can happen underground. Parking can happen in the air. You could have gardens on rooftops. The point is, we have to use new building methods, preserve our land space. Remember, it's only 116 square miles we have, and a big chunk of it is being protected for 250 years. So we have to use wisely the remainder of our land assets. Our investment in public infrastructure will include Scarborough Secondary School. And in this fiscal, and you've seen some images from the conceptual, in this fiscal, in fact, probably now I'm advising about a week and a half again, we will go out for modify, build, design. So a conceptual was done. I hosted a focus group with the stakeholders of the school, represented from the PTA, the teachers, the union, the students, the alumni association, and we went through the conceptual drawings for Scarborough Secondary School. And we are going to go out to tender. We are going to award in this fiscal, and the award in this fiscal, we have sufficient funds based on the media review to pay for the final designs, to pay for topographic studies, to pay for all of the initial works to be done where Scarborough Secondary is concerned. This school is a big hallmark of our autonomy. And I want to explain. You know that there is no secondary school in Tobago that was built exclusively by the Tobago House of Assembly? Between 1980 and now? Think about it for a moment. The Great Bishop's High School I went to existed before the THA. Roxburgh Secondary existed before the THA. Scarborough Secondary and Signal Hill existed before the THA got started. And then we had the secondary education modernization program started by Basil Pandey. That gave us Speyside High School, Goodwood High School, and Mason Hall High School, all built by the central government. Harmon School yesterday was built on people like me who pay tithes and offering in the Lord's Church, not by the THA. Pentecostal Light and Life, by the people, by the Pentecostal people. They did get some government support and funding, but their school wasn't exclusively 100% built by the THA. This administration, in its second term in office, moved from staring at the bush on the hillside to allocating the land to a conceptual drawing and being able to go out to not just tender, but to award a contract for the building of the first secondary school to be exclusively built by the Tobago House of Assembly. That is autonomy at work. And that's what has happened when you vote out PNM. Because I sit down in this house since 2017. And since 2017, every year, all we get is 1 million cap. Sorry. Sorry, Mr. President Officer, on their behalf. They get a little excited. But every year, what we're getting, 1 million can't build no school. We got the largest allocation to a secondary school to build Scarborough Secondary School at the media review. That's what's happened when you change leadership. And whether they like the lady from South or not, we get more from the leader in South than the one who born right in Mason Hall. And so these are all lovely conceptuals, and they will walk it through with those in the tender, and they will go for modify, design, build. And then if I'm talking improvement to public infrastructure, I have some concerns about some old government quarters that we have all over the place. All of them falling into significant disrepair, Mr. Presiding Officer. The Executive Council 2 weeks ago met and approved the reallocation of these assets to housing assets. They will be placed into the POSH program. They will be sold at their market value to the public officers in Tobago. And that project will be exercised between the Office of the Chief Secretary and Turk, which is the housing company over at the Division of Settlements. This is what they have been. A reflection, perhaps, of how they governed for 21 years. All of these housing assets in a state of disrepair, no maintenance. And yet, every time somebody's house wash away, catch a fire, the teacher to rent place to people. And look, all of these wasted to a state of disrepair have to be rebuilt. And so we are going to take a look at these assets. We are going to move to the place where we value what they are. Some will be kept by the THA for strategic purposes, and that will be based on their geographical location. So, for example, I could say one time, those at Otley Street Extension will be kept for strategic purposes. Some will be kept for national security purposes, because we make a provision for national security. And some will be kept for natural disasters, if we need in terms of natural disasters. But all the others will be placed in a pool and made available for sale at the existing market value for the properties. So Tobago public officers, you can look out for this. It is important. And let me say, this notion that every time somebody has to work in Tobago in the public service, we have to provide place for them to stay, must stop. It must stop. When Tobagonians go to Trinidad to work in the public service, nobody provides any quarters, any apartments, anything. They have to dip down in their pocket and pay their own rent. And we have Tobago public officers working in Trinidad right now. You're not entitled to anything from the THA. It's one public service that they want to come and work, or you give up the appointment to somebody else who want to come and do the work. I am not making any provision for any public officer coming from Trinidad to work in Tobago with no housing. That is stopping as of today. So I've already instructed the chief ad that who already lucky and inside there, let them stay inside there, because I don't believe in throwing people out on the street. But as they depart, if they're not in national security, then they're not a priority. If it's not strategic, then it's not a priority. And if it is not a natural disaster, then it's not a priority. Find your own rate. And then food security and sovereignty. I will speak to one issue there, which is the moving of CPEP. And I see some chatter in the public space about it. Both CPEP and URP were retained by this government. They campaigned and they said, well, just as the central government, they will disband it in Tobago. We haven't disbanded CPEP and URP. What we have done is that we have repurposed them, putting them to work. We are saying in CPEP, beyond paying you to do some little landscaping, we are paying you to assist with our food security and sovereignty issues, putting you on our farmlands to work, to produce crops, to rear animals, and to give you new skills. And over time, we will matriculate you into a company, sort of like a cooperative, where you get to manage your own stocks and earn from your own enterprise and your own efforts. But we are not there yet. So that's what the CPEP workers will be doing in short order later in this fiscal year into next year. Mr. President Officer, as I approach the last leg of the presentation, I see I wasn't so good on the promise of ending at 12, but we'll be there shortly. I want to make some detailed observations on 5 areas. Detail does not mean that I have to be long on it. Constitutional autonomy. On August 10th, Monday, August 10th, the entire of Tobago will be called to a halt, will be asked to pause. The entire island will descend on Shore Park Complex, and we will host the Shore Park Convention, where I will invite other political voices in the Tobago space, religious organizations, NGOs, educators and other professionals, and even people you don't think are professionals like housewives, to come out and to share their broad perspective on what autonomy for Tobago means, what they want out of this self-governance government exercise and experiment. That will then trigger the community consultations, and the Secretary of Finance spoke about it in her budget, about the team that will go out and will listen to all of your claims and your projections. And while that is happening, the Secretary of Legal Affairs will lead a team that will do the drafting of those proposed bills. And the Secretary of Legal Affairs will speak more to that. So far, Tobagonians have heard of just one person who is already committed to this exercise, who is Professor Ghani. As you should know, Professor Ghani was on the THA team in 1995, chaired by former Chairman Lennox Dinoon, when they were preparing for Act 40 of 1996. Professor Ghani was not even on the Trinidad's team. He was on the THA team at that time. And more than likely, he will be the only person who was on the last team who will be on this present team. The other members of that committee will be detailed at post-executive briefing next week. I must secondly give some observations about developing an inclusive society. Last month, an edict went to all divisions and companies of the THA instructing that at least one special needs citizen of Tobago must be in the employ of your division or company. We're not just talking it. We can't have a prosperous society and some in our society will never get a chance. And we are saying that you have special needs, maybe you can't walk for long hours, maybe you have speech impediment, hearing impediment, but there must be a place for you in our schools and in our workplace. And it cannot be that we're just investing in schools, because we make it a priority in this fiscal year. So the campus that is meant to take our special needs people all the way into adulthood, that is not sufficient. The best practice is really inclusion. And it can't be we build a campus and chuck them in a corner in Single and say that's where you should stay. They have to be included in our society, meaning be included in our workplace and in our ordinary schools. And we have begun that process. For too long, we have some squint job down in Bonaccord by the primary school. You have to bring them out of it and treat them with dignity and give them decent schooling. There are people with special needs getting PhDs as we speak, while Tobago special needs children are struggling. Thirdly, sustainable population growth. The Division of Health and Wellness already got the approval of Executive Council, and they are preparing to roll out the well-received covenant of $500 per child for the first 5 years of the child's life. And so that will be effective from January 1, 2026. So even if your child was 2026. So even if your child was born before the rollout of this policy, you will receive a little back pay for the months you did not receive. Responsible governance is a result-based government, and a result-based government leads to prosperity for all. And I'm seeing, Mr. President, some good friends in the public gallery who shall remain nameless, that I hope are motivated by this policy to start. And while that is happening, we are, with the actuarians, working on the broader policy of the trust fund for our Tobago children under the age of 18 and what that will look like. Then we have digital infrastructure and AI adaptation. We have already launched internally our AI platform that will allow for constant monitoring of the work that we do, the work that is being done in the divisions and in the companies. As that is being rolled out through the divisions, it means that as Chief Secretary, as a Secretary, you could sit from a global space and look at every single project happening across the whole of Tobago in real time. You could see who have the file, who is left to take action, why they didn't take action in real time. So we're not struggling to find files, struggling to figure out who's dealing with the matter now. It's about using the technology for greater efficiency. And we also heard in the budget about how we are going to set up virtual desks, how you are going to engage for social welfare, social protection, how those are going to be digitized and you're going to receive your money digitally. Frankly, I think we took a little long to get here, but we are very close to the point where your temporary food cards, your benefits can just simply come to your phone and you walk in your supermarket and you tap your phone and pay and go about your business. That's the direction we're going in, which means your house burned down. You're not struggling to try to come into town to go by fires, get a fire report, then you go across by the electrical inspectorate, and then you move from there and you go across by health, and you're trying to catch car up and down town. You're done frustrated already. We are digitizing our access to social protection, which is in an effort to ensure that there's prosperity for all. And finally, developing advanced institutional capabilities. We're looking at significant training opportunities. Secretary Morrison will be preparing a program where we'll finally get the Public Service Academy going. We are looking at training public officers in conversational Spanish. Every public officer must be bilingual at least. Must be bilingual at least. That adds to global competitiveness and greater ease of doing business. We are looking at training in other areas such as AI, digital platforms, law, public service management. And what we are doing is that we are going to be working with the universities to bring the programs right here on our doorsteps in Tobago, offer them, and our public officers will get actual accredited certificates and degrees. And we want to offer programs all the way up to the postgraduate level for our public officers here in Tobago. Essentially, this is part of a building out of the Tobago University concept that we have had since PDP days, about having a satellite-type university existing on the island. And we are about to be starting in the next fiscal year with this program. We also understand that while we have countless employees of the THA, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, we do experience some capacity challenges. And that might just simply be a reason of lack of exposure. There are many of our workers, they have worked nowhere else but Tobago. They went to school right here. Some went to school in Trinidad, but most spent their life in this Tobago space without the virtue of having international connections, understanding how the world works outside of Tobago. And so naturally, there will be some capacity challenges. There's another issue we must look at, which is the outward migration of our top talent. And I've always said that my class had a class reunion recently, that's class of 2001. And can't believe 25 years passed. Granted, I missed most of the class reunion activities. I missed the activities. But when I thought about my own class, when we started sixth form in lower six in September 2001, my lower six class had 93 students in it. 93. I don't know if I could find 93 of us still living and working on the island of Tobago. And if at that time, Tobago only had 2 schools with sixth form, and in those days, that was the thing to do. You do O-levels and then you go to sixth form. And you went to sixth form either at Bishops or Signal Hill. So students came into my sixth form from Scarborough Sec and others, and Roxburgh Secondary and others, and the same for Signal Hill. But if out of 93, and that might have easily been 93 of the best performers in CXC O-level that year, I don't know if I could find 50% of those living and working on the island. It means that we are seriously bleeding our talent. But we shouldn't whine over that. What we have to do is buttress those who remain in the fight and who remain here to build the island up. And so this developing of advanced institutional capabilities is about improving them, ensuring that the Tobago worker is the best in the country, ensuring that we continue to produce leaders in the public service. And at the post-budget press briefing on Monday, the conversation also arose about the number of employees of the THA. And I decided to do a deep dive to see how many people were employed since we took office. So I sent out a missive asking for the data for January 2022 all the way to the end of May 2026. How many people have we employed since we come into office? I don't know if to be proud or not of this number, but Mr. Presiding Officer, we are at 3,146 and counting. Over 3,000 new employees over the last 4 years. Added to the THA payroll, over 3,000. This is new employment. This is contract, daily rated, over the last 4 years. Over 3,000. Now, I know some somewhere are celebrating, because that means employment, it means money in the bank, and all of those good things. But the side of me that did some economic studies will have to question whether this is sustainable. And the reality is that we have to build industries outside of the THA, so that the THA is not the only go-to for employment. That a man or a woman must say, well, I could get paid more outside. And that's why we have to invest in the tourism sector. That's why we invested in fixing the airport. We have to invest in fixing rooms. We have to invest in fixing up Store Bay, that in the budget. We have to invest in fixing up Pigeon Point and No Man's Land and our beach houses and Blue Food Ground. We have to create avenues for entrepreneurship. We have to invite investors here to come and build boutique hotels, because we have to create industries outside of the THA. And in the creation of those industries, we have to also look at what can we produce, what factories can we build. And so it's not idly that we decided to just put CPEP with food security, because we are transitioning them to a place where they can actually build industries, that they could produce things and then later on process stuff. And they will be trained and they will be paid for their work, and they will earn on their own. But we have to manage this. And yes, there will come a point, Secretary of Finance and Economy, where I will have to issue an edict freezing employment in the THA, because we can't just keep going. We can't just keep going. Don't be alarmed, those of you who are on short term and is not in this count as yet. Those of you on 10 on, 10 off. We extended your program till the end of August, because we know we didn't want any disruptions before you prepare your children to return to school. But the division is working on transitioning to the permanent hires and filling the vacancies there at the Division of Infrastructure. To fill those vacancies requires that the division promotes those who are already on the establishment into the elevated vacant positions and then make the positions at the bottom available for entry. So that administrative work is happening along with the unions, and we are hoping that by the time we get to the end of August, we will get to the place where we do those permanent hires on the vacancies. And there's some other divisions with some existing vacancies. We're trying to close those gaps. But once we have closed those gaps, we will have to put a pause on hiring for a number of years in the THA to allow us to catch up with, because with increased budgetary allocation from central government, I don't want us to just increase on the recurrent expenditure. I don't want the recurrent expenditure to mushroom to the place where we have no money to build roads and build schools and to build bridges and to do the infrastructural work that is required. But we are happy that over 3,000 Tobagonians got the chance to be employed by this government. And that's why when the minority spent the last 4 years saying that we're wicked and we're taking bread from people's mouth and people ain't getting work, they know over 3,000 people quietly getting their bread, eating their bread and keeping them out quiet and ready to vote them completely out of office. They didn't know that. They won't mind their business. They don't mind their business, so they see that Tobagonians are being serviced by this caring and loving government. The data speaks to it. And so, Mr. Presiding Officer, as I bring this contribution to a much-needed close, permit me to say a few words about the ethos of this administration. That's the spirit that will animate every decision we make over the next 4 years. This government believes that public office is a sacred trust. We reject the notion that government exists to preserve privilege, to reward political friends, or merely to administer decline. We believe government exists to improve the human condition. Every policy we pursue, every road we pave, every school we improve, every entrepreneur we empower, every investment we attract, and every community we strengthen must ultimately answer one question. Has it made life better for the majority of the people of Tobago? That is the standard by which we ask to be judged. We are a government that believes in competence over convenience, evidence over emotion, planning over improvisation, collaboration over confrontation. Thank God that there's collaboration now. Thank God I could pick up the phone and call people. Thank God there is no acrimony. You know, it feels good. Man, you could just sleep in your bed at night and not know that agencies of state are going to be weaponized against you. Because there is a measure of respect. And that doesn't mean that there is always agreement between us, you know. That doesn't mean that everything they do that we are lockstep in agreement with. But respect means that even when we don't agree, we agree to disagree respectfully. Collaboration over confrontation and service over self-interest. We believe that transparency builds trust, that accountability strengthens democracy, and that measurable results, not eloquent speeches, are the true currency of good governance. We are unapologetically ambitious for Tobago because we know that this island is capable of becoming the greatest little island on the planet. I saw some of my same friends, Mr. Presiding Officer, down in the Buckaroo Reef area. They went cruising around the Caribbean and traveling around the Caribbean. And they all up on TikTok showing what happening in St. Martin. And there's a Tobagonian from Goodwood running the port there in St. Martin. And they're proud of the Tobagonian. And then they're reflecting back home where two boats could bear. They even not even proper cruise ships. Two pirogues could barely hitch up next to each other. And as an island, what we have to dream for ourselves must be bigger than that. I want to see a Tobago that is transformed in a remarkable way. We are looking at the transformation of people through training, through education, through our refocused data over education, through the building of a new secondary school, through increased provisions for skills training and vocational education. That has to also translate in a transformation of public infrastructure. And no, I don't want Tobago to look like Miami. I don't want Tobago to look like New York. But I want Tobago to look like its best self. The Tobago I know is a Tobago where, even when I don't have it, you look your best, you are your best. Most people probably know me where I live now. But in my formative years, we were living in my great-grandparents' house. My great-grandparents' house stood just before where my father's house presently is. It was a wooden house on posts. I don't know if you know those wooden houses on some posts with the push-out windows. It was one of those old homes with push-out windows. And one of the things I could always remember is that as small, as humble as that was, it was always kept clean, always well swept, bed well made. I could tell you, if I met my father living in that house, I have a cousin who now live in this spot, built a house in that spot. That house didn't even have electricity, was those kerosene lamp. That's during my primary school years I'm talking about, you know. When I started Bishops, my father now started to build the house we live in. And when we moved in the house we live in, it didn't have doors and windows. It was a piece of plyboard knocked across the windows. And we used to have a piece of a plyboard where the door's supposed to be that we used to slide back and forth to cover the entry. But it wasn't so much about what we had, you know, but it's about how we presented what we had. Nobody in my class could have said that was my house, because the clothes always clean, the shirt the whitest among the whites, linen plain with that, well ironed, crisp. The book bag always had every piece of book plus extras, because every holiday my father will go to the bank and take a loan and pay for the books. Why am I telling you this story? Because it's not so much about what we have now that makes a difference, you know. It's what we do with what we have that makes the difference. And I don't know since when Tobago became a place that we settled for ordinary, that we settled for kaba, that we settled for things not being in the most efficient. I want this space to look good. I want, when we walk through town, when we walk through Scarborough, to feel a sense of pride that this is my capital, that it is efficient, that traffic is moving well, that there are lovely pedestrian streets, tree-lined streets, that it is well decorated, that the buildings are not falling apart, that we don't have balconies hanging on by mossy threads, that it looks like who we are as a people. Because who we are as a people is that we understand what it is to be poor but pious. We understand what it is to not have, but to be immaculate in how we keep our surroundings. Since when we become a people that tossing out fridge, stove, maybe it's because we couldn't afford all them fridge and stove. Maybe because long time we couldn't afford to change it every Christmas. But people are indiscriminately dumping all over the place. We can't keep up with it. We go and we clear area white waste, now we come back the same day clear it. By night time, middle of the night, somebody gonna go and put on an old couch set instead of just taking it to the dump. That's a reflection on all of us. It's more than just government. It's about how we keep our own yards. We should not be begging people to cutlass your own yard. By my grandparents' house, it was like a botanical gardens. Flowers are all kind. I don't even see some of those variety of flowers anymore. My grandmother was one of those ladies who used to walk about the place and pick up plants. I sure everybody had a grandmother or a mother. Couldn't go by a neighbor and not come back home without a piece of plant to plant. Always picking up a piece of flowers to plant somewhere. Or I ain't get this home, so you're going and plant it. All different flowers. Because there was a sense of pride in ourselves, who we are, what we possess as a people. This budget is calling for us to get back to that as part of the value that we have to set for ourselves. As a government, we have set the stage. We have decided that we are not going to aim low at all. You see, last election there, they started to talk about port development. Before that, they had nothing in none of them manifestos about any port development. Their manifestos were about giving people work and building some little small things here or there. But we decide that we have to be ambitious, that the goals must be in the stratosphere. We can't put the goals below the white line in the ground. The goals have to be up in the sky. That's what we have to aim for. And yes, we don't have the money to do all of it one time. But we are taking steps. We are using alternative methods. We are going out to tender. We are encouraging investors to come in. And you will hear from secretary after secretary how lofty the goals are for the next fiscal year. My job as chief secretary is to hold the secretary's feet to the fire, to ensure that they keep these pledges with the people. But when we sit in the exec council, we don't sit down there thinking about how we could make money for ourselves. We don't sit down there spending the time trying to figure out how to benefit a financier. We sit down there thinking about how do we improve this place for our people? How do we make our villages even more livable and more coherent? How do we educate our children? We spend a long time trying to find money so we could put more money into datas. Every year, datas, when I came here as chief sec, datas started off with about $2 million, $2.5 million in datas. I know we start doing? Pumping more money into it, spending 5, 7, 10 million to send people out to university to study, to send them to schools all over the world, because we want the best for our young people, the best for future leaders. And so again, I want to thank the people of Tobago for renewing their confidence in this party and this government. I don't take that as any slight achievement. I'm not even taking it as an achievement of my own. I'm taking it as the people of Tobago saying we are worthy of a contract for another 4 years. I'm not here pitching for the 4 years after that. When that time comes, I will do the performance appraisal with you, the people of Tobago. You will interview us and you will decide whether to give us back the work or not. You see, for this 4 years, by the end of this 4 years, by 2030, Tobago must not look and feel like it looks and feel like now. We will clean up our streets. We will fix our tongues. We will clean the verges. We will build out our villages. We will bring enterprise and business into our villages. And at the end of the day, we are committed to being a results-based government that is intent on providing prosperity for all the people of Tobago. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Member for Scarborough Mount Grace, you may now join the debate.
Greetings, everybody. Greetings, Mr. Presiding Officer. As always, No. I'll make do. As always, Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to thank the people, the good people of Scarborough Mount Grace, who's returned me to this house to represent them, and I hope to do so to the best of my ability. Mr. Presiding Officer, I stand in support of the budget presented by the Honorable Secretary for Finance, Trade and the Economy, Mrs. Roberts, and I want to focus my presentation more on the development side of the budget, but I may, if time permits, speak about one recurrent issue which I think is critical for the people of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am now privileged to lead, as the Chief Secretary has appointed me, to the new Division of Strategic Planning and Development. And I want to because there's been so much talk around this space, I want to just explain what the division is and what it will do, not go through what the Chief Secretary has already mandated and is in a public space, because that is there for everybody to read. But the goal of the division is to centralize planning and implementation into one ecosystem. And so at the division, we hope to take the necessary action to ensure that the plans of the THA are executed in a coordinated manner, that the policies are developed, and that through the SDPP, we will be able to develop the performance management systems necessary to ensure we are delivering on the goals that we set. So the division will bridge the gap between policy and implementation. It will integrate strategic planning and policy development, spatial planning and development control, development coordination and program integration, research, monitoring and performance management, of course, through the PRDI, capital infrastructure planning, macro program management, urban redevelopment, development delivery systems, and mega projects planning and execution. The division, therefore, will function not just simply as a planning division, but as the coordinator of the Tobago development architecture. Through the strategic development planning pathway, the new division of strategic planning and development will integrate planning, budgeting, financing, implementation, and performance management within this new development ecosystem. The objective is to ensure that development priorities are identified, financed, implemented, and monitored through one coordinated framework. I want to say, Mr. Presiding Officer, that Tobago cannot administer its way into development. Tobago must plan its way to development. Tobago must invest. Tobago must build, and we must build our own way to development that we want. The division, therefore, represents a shift from administrative management towards transformational development, infrastructural self-sufficiency, and long-term economic resilience. So, Presiding Officer, so we've presented a budget of $1 billion, thereabouts, for the fiscal 27 development program. The $1 billion represents, by our estimation, a justified, the Chief Secretary talked about the fair share conversation, but $1 billion in our estimation represents a development ask that we think is reasonable and that we think should be considered, and for the first time in the history of budgeting in Trinidad and Tobago, be allocated to the people of Tobago. Section 43 of the THA Act recognizes Tobago's rights to budgetary development considerations in excess of population percentage figures. And this has been a discussion that has been going on since the 1990s, when the Tobago House of Assembly had to take the government to the Dispute Resolution Committee to ensure we were getting at least some minimum amount guaranteed in the budget. Tobago, therefore, operates under structurally established development conditions. The development gap that we now see between the two islands, Trinidad and Tobago, is therefore not accidental. It is structural. Structural because it is entrenched in the economic system of Trinidad and Tobago now, and we in Tobago continue to be significantly behind the Trinidad as far as it goes to development, budgeting, and development project implementation. The case, therefore, for an equal share of the development spend is not one of preferential treatment. It is one, I want to say, of structural correction. And I want to say, Mr. Presiding Officer, that the PNM missed the boat on this, maybe willfully, over the last 15 years. 15 years of which, 5 of which were not the PNM. And the figures I want to read will kind of tell the story of what what has happened between our request for development spend in Tobago and what was actually awarded to Tobago for development spend as compared to what happened in Trinidad. I want to go further, Mr. Presiding Officer, to talk about the Infrastructure Development Fund that funds infrastructure development in Trinidad and not in Tobago. The Infrastructure Development Fund, called the IDF, was established in 1997, and it funds national development and has increased by financing through, it has increased over the years by allowing the fund to now be spent on project-based capital allocation. Billions of dollars have been invested through project financing mechanisms to support transformational projects throughout Trinidad, and I dare say none in Tobago. Yet Tobago has remained substantively and materially omitted from this model. Instead, Tobago's development has remained largely dependent on annual consolidated fund allocations and percentage-based budgeting discussions. The result, Mr. Presiding Officer, is that there is not merely a funding gap, it is a structural gap in development reality orchestrated by a parliament that functions substantively in opposition to the people of Tobago. And I am saying this very soberly. From 2012 to 2026, the THA requested $24.6 billion for development spending in Tobago. THA was allocated $4.4 billion. In the same period, Trinidad was allocated $90.6 billion, not counting the monies that they got at mid-year review. $90.6 billion. And so, if I want one point to remain in the minds of Tobagonians and Trinidadians, is that this model cannot continue. On November 4th, 2025, addressing this House, the Honorable Prime Minister, standing right next to where you are, Mr. Presiding Officer, said, and I quote, "In short order, we will develop a fair and transparent mechanism to allocate a portion of national revenues to Tobago in accordance with an agreed upon fair share model." She went on to say that this equalization model, in the first instance, will allow for a moving away from the current population-based budgeting for development, but will move instead to project-based budgeting. In the first instance. These commitments fundamentally change the development financing conversation for Tobago, and fair share financing and project-based budgeting financing are now matters of stated national policy. And so, unless the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago intends to make the Prime Minister into a liar, I'm presuming that in the first instance starts this year. And in the first instance, while we not yet have a fair share agreement negotiated, in the first instance, the government of Trinidad and Tobago ought to, and we demand, allocate to the THA our $1 billion. Mr. Presiding Officer, there's always been this conversation between Tobago and Trinidad as to what is the GDP of Tobago, how much money we're making in Tobago, what is our contribution to this national revenue pool that we have, and so on. And there is no conversation, the conversation on budget must include a revenue conversation. And so we in Tobago have to ask ourselves if strategically the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, by attempting to limit the administrative authority of the THA to 6 nautical miles, is a willful attempt to ensure that revenue calculations in Tobago are limited, are restrict, that energy revenue calculations in Tobago are limited to within 6 nautical miles. And if that is the case, then again the Parliament has been willfully working against the people of Tobago to ensure that we feel as though we can't contribute. But what is the reality? If Tobago were to be properly defined, and it is more of an economic conversation, not a political conversation. If we understand strategy and how this has developed over the last, since independence, we understand that this is an economic conversation. When the government of Trinidad can take monies after flora and spend it, designed to be spent in Tobago, and spend it all in Trinidad, we understand that the political structure that is Trinidad and Tobago is an economic structure designed to keep Tobago outside of the revenue that legitimately belongs to you, the people of Tobago. And so, Tobago is surrounded by energy resources. And if, according to UNCLOS, we were to delineate Tobago and Trinidad, but remain into one jurisdiction called Trinidad and Tobago, then several energy fields will fall certainly under the calculation of revenue to the supposed state of Tobago. You know, I use 2 states in my email all the time, 1 union, 2 states, to make the point that we can in fact have a sovereign democratic state that is distinctly separate, but comes together as one state. And we see this all over the world. We see it in Britain. Scotland controls their North Sea and collects all revenue for themselves, and by law they share some with Britain. We see it in Canada. Provinces in Quebec and in the Far East control their resources, energy resources out in the ocean, and share it with Montreal. This is not a new thing. And the time has come for Tobago, Mr. Presiding Officer, and for Tobagonians as we move to that big meeting at Shore Park to understand that if we don't share in the energy resources that we have now, we can never develop what we have dreamt about developing. The future of deep sea exploration is in fact in the Tobago EEZ if it were properly defined. North Coast Marine Area 2, 4, Block 25, Block 23, Block 22, even the deep water where Exxon is now adjacent to Guyana, all of that will be in Tobago's waters, and all of that should be calculated to the revenue of Tobago. We live in a convenient jurisdiction. When I buy my vehicle, well, I ain't paying tax these days on vehicle, but when I bought my vehicles in the past, and I pay my tax on a vehicle, it is calculated as Trinidad taxes. When I buy my tuna by Warner's grocery, it is calculated as Trinidad taxes. When companies that operate in Tobago pay PAYE for their employees and pay company tax, it is calculated as Trinidad tax. When cruise ship passengers pay their taxes on tickets, it is calculated as Trinidad tax. When people travel from New York and maybe from Canada soon, from England, and pay percentage of their taxes for tickets to come to Tobago, it is calculated as Trinidad tax. When my siblings who are Tobagonians and who are to be promoted in a public service in Trinidad pay their taxes, Trinidad taxes. So we have not been able to properly calculate what our contribution is. And through the division, strategic planning, and through the PRDI to be come on stream next year, we will bring those figures to the public so that we have a clearer picture and we can feel differently about ourselves as to what really is our contribution to this so-called national revenue that people seem to think 90%, 95%, 97% must be spent in Trinidad, and some token should be given to Tobago. From 2012 to 2026, by our estimation, the revenue collected from energy fields in what should be considered as the Tobago EEZ, from our calculation in that same period, we have contributed in excess of 100 billion TT dollars. And those are figures anybody could research for themselves. And so when we present this budget this year of $1 billion, we have no doubt that the government should in fact give us this $1 billion. We feel strongly that we have come to the point in the development of Trinidad and Tobago where a decision has to be taken as to how we equalize the islands. How do we bridge that gap? How much money does it take to bring Tobago to the level of development that Trinidad has? So we could finally say, and we could finally feel proud when the anthem started to play, we could put our hand down very smartly and we could say, side by side, we stand. I'm saying to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance that that time should start September, October 2026. So what are we doing at the division to ensure that the development of Tobago proceeds in a structured, planned way? Everybody knows the Chief Sec said that we'll be responsible for mega project development. I want to get into the psyche of Tobagonians that when I was at Works, we paved a set of road, and my good friend, Secretary Pantin, is doing a great job of paving a set of roads and ensuring that everybody's saving shocks and tires and so on. And we are feeling better about Tobago is beginning to feel that, we're really moving the island forward. I want to say that we have to bear in mind that necessary as those things are, the economy does not move on that. The economy moves on investment. The economy moves on revenue generation. And if we are to move the economy forward, apart from the $1 billion, we have to find a system that allows us as Tobago, us as a government, to bring money into the space and to multiply that money as long as possible, to retain some of that money before it leaves. And that is why our focus, or part of our focus, has to be on mega project implementation. And so we have put together a list of 7 projects. My hand's scratching me, I believe. Money coming. Secretary, what's money coming? Money coming. We have put together a series of mega projects that designed to ensure that we are bringing private sector revenue into the Tobago economy. The chief talked about the marina at Cove.
Please be seated. Who's the person that's responsible for that telephone outburst? Could you kindly step outside for 5 minutes, please? Thank you. Continue, member.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. We live in essentially a marine space in Tobago. And so developing projects that help us benefit from our marine advantage is critical to the economic development of Tobago. And so in this fiscal, we will go out to tender for the marina. We have concepts, we have location, and we are hopeful that we are now working on the RFP and so on, and that will be going out to tender, if not this quarter, certainly in the next quarter. Again, that will be a PPP project. We'll be going out to tender for the parkade and transportation hub in Scarborough. We are hopeful that we'll go out to tender for a couple of hotels, one in Pigeon Point and one in Scarborough. Since our trip to Fragrant Hill, we have been getting interest from international companies who want to invest in Tobago. And so Fragrant Hill is a tourism summit we went to in China, and we prepared that document to go to that summit. And we are hopeful that this year, the interest we are now getting, that investment will take off in Tobago. Because it's only through that investment that we are going to move the economy forward. We want Tobagonians to understand that it's only through these bigger projects that we can transform the economy, that we can create jobs, that we can stimulate investment, that we could generate multiplier effect, and we can expand what we are offering if we are going to build a really decent tourism sector on the island. We are still hopeful, of course, that we will get more interest on the port. You've got some interest, and we're negotiating now, but there are legal challenges that we must overcome. And so we look forward to exciting times. Mr. Presiding Officer, spatial planning. Spatial planning is one of the core responsibilities of the division. We are hopeful that before the year finishes, I know I made a statement on this before, but we are hopeful that before calendar 2026 comes to an end, that the town country planning will be under the full control of the THA. We have, in fact, and I want to say this very, very carefully. We have, in fact, written to the Minister of Planning in Trinidad 2 months ago, and we are still awaiting a response. Notwithstanding, we will be moving, as directed by the Chief Secretary, we will be moving to ensure that the few items of authority given to us under the 5th schedule of the TH Act, that in fact we take that and we take that manfully and manage what we have. Since independence, we've not had a spatial plan in Tobago. People are still right north of Claude Highway. Lands are still classified as agricultural lands. You still have to go to Port of Spain and appeal to some appeal board in Port of Spain to get a land use change for lands that are essentially in town. You know, and we sit back and we accept this as if, well, oh, that's okay, that's normal, you know. And so before long, we'll develop a spatial plan for Tobago. We'll begin to zone various areas in Tobago for different types of land use. And critically, we will develop a marine plan in conjunction with the Division of Marine Affairs. I almost say Marine Affairs. The Division of Environment, to ensure that we are creating the policies to collect revenue for rental of the seabed and so on.
Remember, you have 3 minutes of speaking time remaining.
So we will in fact be ensuring that around the island, that as you moor your vessel, we have the policies in place along with Secretary Henry to develop the policies to ensure that we are collecting the revenues that we should collect from those who are, in fact, using our marine space. Mr. Presiding Officer, before I close, I want to speak about an issue that is a bit vexatious and a bit concerning. The 23rd report of the Salaries Review Commission, and this is the one recurrent issue I want to speak about, in 1991, records that representations were made that certain assemblymen and councillors had been assigned special responsibilities requiring full-time attention. Those who remember, in the 1980 Act, there was only one full-time representative, and that was the chairman of the Tobago House of Assembly. And the intent of the legislation at the time was to have one chairman run the entire public service in Tobago. And so just that chairman alone attracted pension, attracted vacation in all of Tobago. And the chairman at the time had to seek permission to have, although he named secretaries, for secretaries to be paid and to get remuneration and all of that, he had to seek permission. And so he brought this to the Salary Reviews Commission. This is 1991. Today, members who served in this house, who built the foundation of the THA, have not been remunerated after retirement, not 1 cent. Today. After the SRC, this information was brought to the SRC, subsequent parliaments.
Remember, your speaking time has elapsed.
Mr. Presiding Officer.
Next one.
Beg to move that the member for Scarborough-Mongrace be given additional time to complete his presentation.
Members, the question is that 10 minutes of additional speaking time be given to the member. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you have 10 minutes of additional speaking time.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. As we sit here today in this House, members past cannot be paid. The SRC apparently is limited by the clause in the THA Act that says that the THA must arrange to pay pensions to its members. I don't know if that is the case, but it seems that that's their limitation. Every other entity in Trinidad and Tobago that the SRC sets salaries for attract a pension. We've had chairmen of the THA having to go and pull bull, as we say, after retirement to sustain himself. We've had members of the THA who set the foundation for what we have after dying penury because somebody in Trinidad decide that we who serve the people in Tobago are not worthy of a pension, that we must contribute to pension when everybody else who are in government gets a pension. And so we at the division will bring a motion to this House. We will bring a policy document to the Executive Council. And we'll bring a motion to this House to debate this issue once and for all, to send amendments to the THA Act, if that is what it takes, to take that line out about the Tobago House of Assembly providing for its members. There's nothing more crazy than that. Even in that 20, how much years from 1996, not one vote is on the THA books for pensions to be paid. Members who have contributed, my salary is being debited now. No member has been paid a pension. There's no structure has been set up, even within the THA, for this to be done. And we sit sometimes in Tobago and we laugh out, don't know not to go and pull bull and whoever to go and do what. While every other politician, everybody leader of government in Trinidad sits back and collects whatever they collect from the state. We must resolve ourselves to correct this anomaly, and I want to correct this anomaly, although I feel it's willful, but we must correct this anomaly, and we must correct this anomaly in the shortest possible time. So, as I close, Mr. Presiding Officer, the challenge that we face in developing Tobago is not simply securing more funding. We deserve more, obviously. The challenge is in transforming the development model itself. Tobago must move beyond being a recipient of project designed elsewhere. Tobago must become the co-author of its own development agenda. And we see the example of the airport. The airport was built, wonderful facility, best thing at this time for the Tobago economy. But we have gone back, we're going to go back 50 years to transporting gas by truck from NP, driving through that whole risk of an accident taking place to bring fuel to the tarmac, because politicians in Trinidad determined that they must not speak to Tobagonians. And they were so bumptious enough to tell the leader of this house to go and sit in a corner. And we have today a situation where a simple thing as providing fuel on the tarmac could not be part of the design. And NIPCO refusing to give a variation to now NP saying it's going to cost $150 million. If we are to be men in our own space, we must co-author. We must alter our development. It's the only way. For too long, Tobago has been conceived externally, prioritized externally, and executed externally. I complain bitterly all the time about how they put all the tea and tech poles right next to the road. You can't even expand the road. Nowhere. Sick, right in Collar Hall. They build a school right next to the road. You can't even put another lane because they sit down in Trinidad. And the town country is in Trinidad, and they approve anything from Trinidad once Trinidad see that's how it should be. And we must bring that to an end. So the proposed $1 billion development program is logical and it is necessary. It represents implementation of the Prime Minister's fair share commitment to start it now. It represents Tobago's inclusion in project-based development fund financing. It represents the correction of Tobago's omission from the IDF development model. It represents investment in infrastructure that creates future revenue streams. It represents a reduction of structural dependency and boat dependency. Let me say that the government of Trinidad and Tobago spent on these last two boats, Bucco Reef and APT James, almost $1 billion to ensure that Tobagonians can spend their money in Trinidad. I had a meeting last weekend with a senior member of the Trinidad, from Trinidad, who tells me that the best thing that should happen is that for them to build a port in Toko. Let us travel to Toko, because the highway already built from Toko to Tong. That will make life easy for Tobagonians. Continuing the idea that we must build infrastructure in Trinidad for Tobagonians. And that is what we must stop. We must stop this structural dependency from continuing. We must deliver projects that increase our ability to raise revenue. And most of all, for this budget, we must ensure that the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago takes the word of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago that Tobago must move away from population percentage budgeting to project-based budgeting. And we can start to do that by ensuring that Tobago receives $1 billion or more in development funding. I thank you.
Honorable members, this House will now be suspended for 1 hour for lunch.